Welcome to the twisted world of hospital horror, where the sterile halls and fluorescent lights offer little protection against the dark forces that lurk within. In these tales of terror, we'll delve into the chilling experiences of those who dared to venture into the heart of the medical abyss, only to encounter horrors beyond imagination. From mysterious patients to phantom surgeons, these true hospital horror stories will make you think twice before seeking treatment in the dead of night. So gather your courage and prepare to be shocked and disturbed by the unsettling events that unfold within the walls of these medical institutions. Today we will talk about 3 disturbing true hospital horror stories. So before we start, make sure to hit the like button and subscribe to my channel. 1. The mysterious patient. Nurse Sarah hurried through the dimly lit corridors of Ceatures Hospital, her footsteps echoing in the empty halls as she made her way to room 303. It was well past midnight, and most of the hospital was shrouded in an eerie silence, broken only by the occasional beep of a monitor or the distant hum of machinery. As she approached the room, Sarah couldn't shake the feeling that something was off. There was a strange flickering light coming from beneath the door, and muffled whispers floated out into the hallway, sending a chill down her spine. Bracing herself, Sarah pushed open the door and stepped inside. The sight that greeted her was like something out of a nightmare. In the center of the room lay a patient, his face obscured by the shadows cast by the flickering candle beside him. Surrounding the bed were a group of figures, their faces hidden in the darkness, their whispers growing louder as Sarah entered the room. Heart pounding, Sarah hesitated for a moment, unsure of what to do. But then, driven by a sense of duty, she approached the bed, her footsteps echoing in the silence. As she drew closer, she could make out the features of the patient lying before her. A man of indeterminate age, his face twisted in pain, his eyes darting wildly around the room. Suddenly, the figures surrounding the bed seemed to vanish into thin air, leaving Sarah alone with the mysterious patient. Trembling with fear, she reached out to touch his hand, but before she could make contact, he let out a blood-curdling scream and vanished before her eyes. Stunned, Sarah stumbled backward, her mind reeling from the shock of what she had just witnessed. Had it been a hallucination, a trick of the light, or something far more sinister? As she fled the room, the echoes of the patient's screams followed her down the hallway, a chilling reminder of the horrors that lurked within the walls of Ceatures Hospital. 2. The phantom surgeon. Dr. Michael Johnson stood at the threshold of the operating room, his surgical scrubs pressed against his trembling body. The fluorescent lights buzzed overhead, casting an unnatural pallor over the sterile surroundings. Despite the antiseptic smell that permeated the air, a sense of unease gnawed at Dr. Johnson's gut. As he prepared to begin the surgery, Dr. Johnson couldn't shake the feeling that he was being watched. Glancing around the room, he saw nothing out of the ordinary, just the gleaming surgical instruments laid out in precise rows and the familiar faces of his surgical team. But as the anesthesia took effect and Dr. Johnson made the first incision, he felt a sudden chill run down his spine. Out of the corner of his eye, he caught sight of a shadowy figure standing at the foot of the operating table, its features obscured by the harsh glare of the surgical lights. Heart pounding, Dr. Johnson tried to focus on the task at hand, but the presence of the phantom surgeon lingered in the back of his mind like a malevolent specter. With each passing moment, the figure drew closer, its movements fluid and ethereal. Suddenly, the figure reached out a hand, its touch sending a jolt of electricity through Dr. Johnson's body. With a cry of alarm, he recoiled, but when he turned to confront the intruder, there was no one there. Shaken to his core, Dr. Johnson stumbled backward, his hands trembling as he struggled to regain his composure. But try as he might, he couldn't shake the feeling that the phantom surgeon was still watching him, its presence lingering like a dark cloud over the operating room. As the surgery drew to a close, Dr. Johnson couldn't help but wonder, had he truly encountered a ghostly apparition, or was it merely a trick of the mind brought on by stress and fatigue? Whatever the answer, one thing was certain. The memory of that night would haunt him for the rest of his days. Shaken to his core, Dr. Johnson finished the surgery as quickly as he could, but the memory of the phantom surgeon haunted him long after the procedure was over. To this day, he refuses to enter the operating room alone, fearing what horrors might await him in the darkness. 3. The cursed ward. As the clock struck midnight, Nurse Emily's footsteps echoed through the dimly lit corridors of Ward 13. the infamous wing of St. Bartholomew's Hospital, known for its dark history and eerie atmosphere. Despite the warnings from her colleagues, Emily had volunteered to take the night shift, eager to prove her bravery and dispel the rumors that surrounded the ward. As she made her rounds, Emily couldn't shake the feeling of being watched, a sensation that sent shivers down her spine. The air felt heavy with an unexplained tension, and every creak of the floorboards seemed to echo like a distant whisper. Approaching the last room at the end of the corridor, Emily felt a chill run down her spine. This room had always given her an unsettling feeling, as if it were somehow separate from the rest of the ward. Taking a deep breath to steady her nerves, Emily pushed open the door and stepped inside. The room was bathed in an eerie half-light, casting long shadows that danced along the walls. Emily's heart pounded in her chest as she approached the patient's bed, her footsteps echoing in the silence. But as she reached out to check on the patient, a sudden gust of wind extinguished the lights, plunging the room into darkness. Panic surged through Emily's veins as she fumbled for her flashlight, her heart racing with fear. In the dim glow of the flashlight, Emily saw movement out of the corner of her eye. A shadowy figure lurking in the corner of the room, its form shifting and twisting in the darkness. Frozen with terror, Emily could only watch in horror as the figure drew closer, its presence filling the room with an overwhelming sense of malevolence. With a strangled cry, Emily turned and fled from the room, her heart pounding in her chest as she raced down the corridor. Behind her, she could hear the sound of echoing footsteps, each one closer than the last. Finally reaching the safety of the nurse's station, Emily collapsed into a chair, her body trembling with fear. It was then that she realized she had left her patient behind in the darkness of Ward 13, the same patient who had been admitted for mysterious and unexplained symptoms. Haunted by the events of that fateful night, Emily vowed never to return to Ward 13 again, knowing that the curse that lingered within its walls was far more real than anyone had dared to imagine. If you liked this video and would like to see more like it, please give it the thumbs up, leave a comment, and click the button to subscribe.